Hello, sisters. Oh my god, it was so long. Oh my god. Because I was like reading it and I was like, like you started this, like you better finish it. I actually thought at some point of like kind of stopping. But then I was like, I definitely wanted to stream more today. And like I don't think I could do the analysis of like half the essay. I think maybe in the future, like how many pages was that? Okay, that essay starts on page 95, 97, and ends on page 126. So that's 50 pages, right? I can't do math. No, it's 30 pages. No, it's 40. 20. Yeah, it's 30 pages. Whatever. Bro, I don't know. But it was long. I think maybe in the future, um, I did get distracted. There was times where I was reading it where I was saying the words and I wasn't processing anything. um, Momo, is that necessary? Oh, okay. Anyway, all right. So I think in the future, if there's any super long essays in this book, the next essay is 20 pages. The next essay is 20 pages. 20, 10, 10. Less than 10. There's like 5 authors in the pages, less than 10 pages. Yeah, I think that's the longest essay in the book. I think if I was gonna do it again, I think I will like split it up and do like half of it like yesterday and then half of it today and then do the analysis today kind of thing, Anyway, whatever. Okay. Also, it's Michelle's birthday. I know she's not here now, but happy birthday, Michelle. um, okay. So this is not at all what I thought the essay was going to be about. And honestly, she mentioned so much stuff in this essay that I have like no frame of reference for at all. Um okay, I'm actually going to go to the washroom and I need to eat something. And I'm going to glance at the essay. I wrote some stuff down because I realized like the essay is so long and I was going to like forget what it was I wanted to talk about. So I wrote down a few things that I want to talk about. I think maybe my analysis of this essay might not be like beginning to end. It might just be like some stuff I have thoughts about. Cuz like it's just too much. It's like I think it would take like 3 hours to like actually give this essay a full analysis and I don't have the energy for that shit. So, okay, I'm going to go to the washroom. I'll be right back. My bad. There's like you can mute it like on the screen on YouTube. You can also mute it like on the microphone. And I keep doing the microphone one because then it's like a flashing light and I remember. And this time I did it on the screen, so I didn't remember. Okay. Um Hello, Julia, Mad Adam, Maple, Blood Moon, Kaz, Clown World. I think that's everyone. Okay, I said hello. Okay. All right. So, Mama, what are you doing? Okay. So I think what I'm gonna do this time, I actually kept the live chat from the last thing open. Obviously, a very long live chat. It won't let me scroll up after a certain point. Very interesting. Okay. Just why don't we start? Can you guys bring up what your thoughts were about some of the stuff in the essay? Like I was saying, because I know most of you weren't here. I'm just gonna pick like individual things to talk about instead of going through like the entire essay. Because that would take like hours. Maple, what is the what is the source of this statistic? I would love to read whatever that is. I also, when she first mentioned this study, the first one she mentions, um, yeah, the Bloomstein and Schwartz study. Um, I'll reread the numbers that she lists here. So they found that lesbian couples have sex far less frequently than any other type of couple. Gay men have somewhat less sex in their primary relationships than heterosexual couples, but gay men have the highest rates of extramarital sex. Lesbians have, in a couple, have less sex than anyone else. Okay. Only about one third of lesbians in relationships of 2 years or longer had sex once a week or more. 47% of lesbians in long term relationships had sex once a month or less. When I first read that, thank you. I think I might have seen this actually. Probably at some point. When I first read that, I was like, I wonder what the lesbians thought when this came out. Like, I bet you there was a bunch of discourse about it and shit back in the day. Um, I don't know. I disagreed with most of the essay and found a lot of it to be bullshit. But I do appreciate the new arguments that it presented that I've never heard before. Um, it made me think of some things that I haven't really thought about before. Like when the initial stuff where she was saying like lesbians aren't having as much sex or like as their relationships like are longer, they have less sex, this kind of thing. I was like, but is it a bad thing to not have that much? Like, is it if the lesbians don't like? Okay, obviously, if the relationship is like negatively affected by this and they're like upset about it, then that's a problem. But she's acting like any instance of sex is automatically a good thing, and I'm like, but just having sex isn't necessarily like a positive thing. You know what I mean? Like she approaches it like on the assumption that every single instance of sex is a positive instance of sex. Like when she talks about heterosexual couples having more sex, I'm like, is that because yes, Julia, that's a male sexuality standard. That's why she was like, some women say that I'm male identified. I'm like, you're literally male identified though, because you're thinking about it from the male perspective. Um, um, yeah, Maple says, yeah, who sets the standard for how much sex women are supposed to have? Exactly. I'm like, what's that word she? There's a word she used a couple times in the essay. I'm sure I'll see it later, but I've never heard this word before. Trumescence or trumiance or something. And I think it means like the beginning, like the honeymoon stage of a relationship. Maybe it's like the official clinical term. Anyway, so my gut reaction to this was like, well, any instance of sex is not automatically a positive good thing. So why are you counting it as bad if there's not enough sex, like enough whatever that is, sex happening? But then I kind of have like a dichotomous view on that because obviously I think that, but at the same time, I think like women deserve like positive sexual relationships with their own bodies. I think women deserve like positive sexual experiences if they want that. Like obviously sex is a good thing, can be fun and nice and stuff. Limerence, that's the word. Thank you, corner. So I was um like like the orgasm gap or whatever. Like talking about the orgasm gap and being like, yes, women deserve more of that. It's kind of like against the you see what I'm saying? Like they kind of don't meet up those two perspectives. But I guess it's more like I need to have like a dialectical understanding of that. And I like this this is a topic like I said before. I feel like I have very little background on this like very little. Yeah. Limerence, the state of being obsessively infatuated with someone, usually accompanied by delusions of or desire for an intense romantic relationship with that person. But none of these are the real dictionary. I'm like a nerd. To me, the only real dictionary is the OBE, the Oxford. I mean, the OED, not the OBE. Well, the Internet Dictionary says that, so okay, whatever. Um, yeah. So when she's like, yeah, these are like the instances of sex that people are having, like based on demographics. I was like, I'm not surprised that straight couples are having, significant amounts of sex because like conditioning and men's desire like in a marriage I think generally women are like I need to give the man what he wants like generally I think that's generally like a lot of the attitude and also we have to keep in mind that this was published in the mid 80s right so um at least for then that was definitely so I'm like because the women are like acquiescing to the male's desires this is automatically like yep that's a good thing and the lesbians are missing that good thing like to me it's just like a very disjointed Kaz says reasons dating males is detrimental to women. They make you think more sex equals better relationship. Yeah. Um and she even at some point in the essay mentioned like not in the BDSM or the S&M section. There. My god, I'm so tired now. But there was a section where like one phrase where she mentioned lesbian sexual relationships. Oh, right. She was talking about like sex as a factor of a relationship and she was like, for most couples, it's like a bonding thing, like it's important. And she was like, and for some couples, they'll become like obsessed with it and it's all that matters, something along those lines. And she just like presented it as like, yep, that's the way it is for some people. Like there was no like thoughts on that. It was just like, yeah, but if sex is like an obsession for people, that's the way it is sometimes. And I was like, isn't that also like if she keeps bringing up repression as a problem, and I actually totally agree with her. I think a lot of lesbians are very repressed. At least I definitely am. But like, I don't think the solution is to go from like one extreme to the other, right? Anyway, okay. Let me see what I wrote down. Oh no, wait. I was looking at this, the last live stream. But yeah, Kaz, like, oh my god. There's one sentence towards the end, like 3 or 4 pages from the end, where she is like, you know, some lesbians, and the way she uses the word lesbian clearly just means like any woman who is capable of attraction to other women, regardless of whether or not she is attracted to men, right? In one sentence, she's like, um, you know, some lesbians like have a history of having relationships with men or whatever, and not all of that relationship or that sex was bad. Some of them even found it pleasurable. And then she's like, "We find this threatening." And I'm like, "But you don't find this threatening because you are like, I'm not explaining it well, but there's literally a sentence where she was like, "Some lesbians enjoy the male sex." And then she is like, "Yeah, so for us as lesbians." And I was like, "But you literally have mentioned several times that you have had positive sexual experiences with men. So why are you saying us like you're a homosexual when you're not a homosexual?" Anyway, Matt Adams says my eyes almost rolled out of my head when you read that. Yeah. Yeah, like Blood Moon. Yeah, I agree. Blood Moon says exactly more sex doesn't mean a better relationship. You can have a shitty relationship with lots of sex and a great relationship with little sex. Yeah. Because also, isn't that a thing where when relationships get bad, people start to have more sex because they think it will like fix something or like change something or whatever? Like, to me, they're obviously related, but to say that like one is entirely dependent on the other is like a bit ridiculous. Um, okay. I love how she said, "I'm an old fashioned lesbian feminist." And then the whole time she's like, "We need to be more like the men." I'm like, is that a lesbian feminist? Um, Clown World, are you listening at work? Okay. I guess it is kind of the middle of the day. But I've already been at work for like 5 hours before I did this. Maple, very much agree. Sex should definitely be quality over quantity. Ooh, you know what I found so interesting? I don't know why she uses the word tricking like that. It's kind of weird. I've never heard it used like that specifically. Anyway. Um okay. I don't think that sex should be like if you didn't have an orgasm, you didn't have sex, or like if you had sex but there was no orgasm, the sex was pointless or whatever. Like, I don't think you should be like, I don't even know how to term this. Like, I don't think it should be the only goal. Okay? But this thing where she brought up like, yeah, feminists are like orgasms during sex is patriarchal. I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? I need to go back and find that. There's like one paragraph and I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like I'm sure some feminists have said that, but I've literally never heard this before. So no frame of reference for this, but a feminist critique of a paper I published included the charge that my thinking was male identified. Dude, I agree. I find it like so, I don't know, not exactly disingenuous, but like along the lines of disingenuous. That she keeps bringing up this argument. She brings it up like at least 3 points in the essay that, well, we don't like know about sexuality. We just like speculate about it. So you don't really have grounds to disagree. And it's like the way she brings it up is like, I'm gonna postulate ridiculous bullshit, but you can't disagree with me because neither of us can prove our position and we're both speculating. So like, don't disagree. Like, it's like very, very stupid of me. Um, I think obsession with the orgasm is male centered, but like, I don't know. I guess I'm like a product of my time, like talking about the orgasm gap. Like, obviously, I actually like, maybe not obviously. I mean, you guys know, I kind of like don't support women having sex with men because I'm like, that seems like dangerous and risky and like not worth it. Like, I can control what you do, but that's what I think about it anyway. So, but like, so there's like discourse about like the orgasm gap, right? Like, women deserve that shit. But then to be like, to ever even have that goal in mind, or for you, for if it happens to be like, oh, that's good. Is that like an anti-feminist thing? That is very bizarre to me. But I understand that it's like because I'm like from this era and she is from a different era. Um, yeah. Maple says, I feel like any talk of decentralizing orgasm inevitably is immediately weaponized into so women don't need to get off. Yeah. Um, and I also found it weird. Like at one point in the essay, she talks about God, the essay was so long. At one point in the essay, she talks about how women are viewed as like not having sexuality, and it's like men have the sexuality and act upon the women. She doesn't mention it like explicitly in those terms. But she brings up that concept, which is like the Victorian way of looking at sex or whatever. And she's like critical of that. She's like, that's bad. And I'm like, but like, it's just not consistent to be like that's bad, but then also like I don't know. That's a good way of phrasing it. Blood Moon says, I think women deserve to have pleasure, which doesn't need orgasms to happen. Agreed. Okay. Oh yeah, I was trying to find this weird thing where she talks about lesbians being against orgasms. I was like, the fuck are you talking about? Because also, maybe this is like male identified of me, but just like talking to lesbians, I think we are like pretty good at giving each other orgasms. Like, obviously, much better. Like, I'm not gonna look it up, but doesn't the data show that like lesbians have the most orgasms in their sex and like straight women have the least orgasms in their sex or something like that? Um, I can't find it. Like I know I've passed it, but I'm not seeing it. It's really strange to me. Like it seems to me the entire premise of the essay is that more sex is good and less sex is bad, and I'm like whoever said it, quality over quantity. Like why? And not once, like she brings up how sex is like integral to relationship bonding, but then when she's advocating for like open relationships and like tricking or like to like expand your sexuality by being able to like engage in sex without an emotional factor, because one of her complaints is that lesbians need like an emotional connection before they like sexually want to do stuff with each other. And it's like, so she'll bring up how like it's a bonding thing for couples. But then when she brings up like that you need to just you should women should learn to just go out and have sex, um the bonding is not mentioned. And I'm like, but it does have like an effect on you like emotionally and psychologically. There is like a bonding. Like how is it a good thing to learn? I think tricking just means hooking up. I think it's just a synonym for hooking up. At least that's how I read it. I think it's like it's not specific to any type of activity, I think, other than like sex without like an emotional like without like a date or whatever. Um what essay is this? Can someone link it to me or something? Madam says I'm biased, but I agree women are much better at pleasing women because we actually tend to care about our partners enjoying themselves. I also think part of it is having to take turns naturally. Yeah, I think so too. Um I also just found it like I don't know. Not like offensive. What's like a downgrade from offensive? Repugnant? Or is that an upgrade? I don't know. I found it like offensive light. That she kept bringing up fucking gay men. She's like, we can learn so much from the men. And she's like it's so oh my god. Okay. Remember she brought up that study where which I got something interesting out of it, but I think her conclusion was really strange. She brought up that study where so they were like repugnant and upgrade, whatever. Um uh Thank you, Kaz. That's a great word. That's the word I'll use. Um, oh, an essay by Michael Bailey. I thought you meant like somebody commented on one of her videos, and that was the essay. Okay. Um, yeah. So she mentions this study, but I'm not going to go and find it. I'm too lazy. You can listen to the essay again yourself. Where some scientist did research where she showed both men and women, like photos or no audio, sexually arousing audio, and the instruments measured the they were aroused. But then when she asked them if they were aroused after, the men said yes, and like a bunch of the most of the women didn't say yes or something, or like half the women said yes or something. And I was like, okay, this to me is not shocking. Women are really out of really disconnected from their bodies and their sexuality and like very repressed. I agree with that premise. But for her to be like it's the same thing for men and women, like literally the instruments to measure them are different. Literally, our anatomy and physiology is different. Like, I'm not saying you can't draw any conclusions from this study, but it's like apples to oranges. The way she was acting was like, yep, we know 100% that we could like attain the same thing as males. If we, and I'm like, I think it's insightful and it's interesting, but women are not fucking men. So who cares? Um, there's an essay, or not an essay, a book I also want to read on this channel, but it's like really, really far back in the queue because it's so easily accessible. Is Lesbian Heresy by Sheila Jeffries. Like I know Sheila Jeffries is a poly-les, but the topic of the book is so salient that I'm like I have to fucking read it. And I've been wanting to read it for like years. I never get around to it. Maybe there's an audiobook of it. Um, it's like Lesbian Heresy by Sheila Jeffries is about how the lesbian community has started emulating the gay male community and how that's affecting them. Which is like so freaking interesting and so fucking relevant. I mean, I'm like a great example. Like, yeah. Mabel says, I'm so fucking sick of being treated like an inferior version of a gay man. Yeah. Like, we have like a similar status to gay men. We don't have a penis, so we're less cool. Oh my god, another offensive thing. At some point in the essay, she literally says, like, we might define a dildo as a replacement penis or a penis as a replacement dildo. And I was like, what in the actual fuck are you talking about? Is this is this the mentality you enter into therapy with lesbians with? What the fuck is this like lesbophobic rapey bullshit? Um oh, that's so cool, Blood Moon. I know she does stuff like public events like once in a while. I'd like to go to something eventually by her just cuz she's like a legend. um but yeah. Okay. Okay, let's see what I wrote down here. Yes, okay. So in the S&M section, she talked about the negatives of S&M, which were like fucking suicide. And then she was like, but we shouldn't focus too much on the bad stuff. Maybe the bad stuff is bad enough that it completely overshadows any of the minute positives you might like. Maybe the bad stuff is so bad that for the people that it's not bad, they should just like fucking get over it and not have that because nobody should have that. Like it's anyway. But she talks about how it's like addictive. She compares it to like an addiction, and she talks about how harmful it can be, like psychologically, physically, blah 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 blah. It reminded me of like what years was that? Like, pre-Freud, when opium became like a big thing in Europe. That like all the intellectuals were like constantly doing opium or snuff or whatever they were calling it, at whatever area you're talking about. So we're Edwardian when it started. I don't fucking know. Oh, it was quite before that. Before they discovered the whatever, bro. I don't remember history, okay? My point is, it reminded me of this like movement of like the intellectually like enlightened people all really getting into opium and being like, well, like obviously there's opium dens and they're like drug addicts, but for some people they just get the goods and not the bads. So then it should be like okay for everyone to do that. And I'm like, that is the most stupid shit I've ever heard in my life. Um she literally was like, look, there's all these red flags. Let's ignore them because some people think it's fun. That is not like a feminist perspective to have on anything when it comes to women's safety. Blood Moon says, that's why Tim say, why do lesbians don't want my organic dick? If they sometimes like a plastic dick, they miss the point that having sex, they miss the point that they like having sex with a woman. Yes. Okay. I so I've been seeing this discourse recently, like you can't escape it anymore. And I saw like some cringy ass TikTok like yesterday or the day before, but a bunch of you have seen this TikTok, some creepy dude. Um who has like a blow dryer in his hair, the whole fucking TikTok, and I'm like, why are you holding a blow dryer against your head? I don't know. It's very like staged. So many of these Tims when they do their rants about how lesbians need to like penis or whatever, they're like doing their makeup or something while they're doing the rant. I'm like, what? Anyway. But like so it made me think of this yesterday. They're literally like, but women are made for penises. Like that's the whole purpose, right? My understanding of that is basically like this. Humans have mouths. The mouths are for putting things into. Whether it's food or dirt, it's the same because it's a mouth for putting things in. That's the way I view it when they're like, "Oh, so you like dildos, you must like dick." That's like saying, "Oh, you like food because you put that in your mouth, you must like putting dirt in your mouth because it also fits into the mouth." Like that's the level of making sense it is to me. Like I don't fucking understand. It makes no sense whatsoever. It's like, "Oh, they're like it just I don't know." Like, I just like my mind boggles at this shit. Okay, anyway. I need to format it. I'll make like a YouTube community post about like that. Okay. Matt Adams says I also like removing the dildo after. Are men cool with that? Um, but yeah, in her section where she was like, "What is like the perfect lesbian sex according to feminists?" and it was like lying down in bed and like you have to, if you're gonna have orgasm, it has to be at the same time, and it has to be like nothing like passionate. Or I'm like, what the? I don't know what the fuck she was talking about, but like, I don't have a ton of sexual experience, but like that's. I was like, what are you talking about? Uh, I almost feel like some of this criticism she has of lesbian sex in this book, um, and I was like, I think that they actually might be based on like women who are not attracted to women attempting to be lesbians and have sex with women. Because just the way she described some of it, like there's a line between like repressed and like you're literally like repulsed, right? I don't know. So yeah, the opium thing. What I wrote down. What else I wrote down? Page 107. Maple's like your sex either has to be crazy S&M leather sex or chaste passionate gazing at one another. There's no in between, says Matt Adam. Yes, no in between. Yeah, very strange. Honestly, I feel bad for this woman. She has like a very fucked up view of sexuality. Like, bro, just do what you want to do. Like, why are you doing all this? I don't know. It's bizarre. Oh yeah. So she brings up this concept of like, women don't initiate sex because that's how they're socialized. So when you have two women, they're both kind of like waiting for the other one to initiate. I think that really what the problem is not so much like the problem she's trying to get at is not so much like, and this is an aspect of female socialization, is not so much like are you aroused and do you want to have sex. It's like that you view your sexuality from the outside as like an external thing happening to you rather than a thing that you are doing yourself. Like I think it's more that than like I don't feel comfortable telling my partner I want to have sex because like also that part makes no sense to me when she talks about like what did she say, the first 2 to 4 years of like lesbian relationships have like a lot of sex and then it stops or something like that when she was like explaining things, and I was like, so if you had like tons of sex in the first 2 to 4 years, clearly that it's like an okay thing to do and you're like compatible or whatever. Jesus. So I was like, why would it be like you can't? I'm not saying that's not like ever an issue, like in a general sense, right? But I just feel like that was kind of like missing the point in some way. I think that women tend to view sex as like I need to do this like to please someone or like only if this person really wants it. And some of you guys were saying like lesbians or women in general view like being the initiator almost as like an aggression and they don't want to like be like the aggressor, and I totally feel that. Like I definitely know what that feels like. But um yeah, it's I think it's more about women viewing sexuality as a thing that's coming from the outside rather than like who exactly their partner is kind of thing. Do you get what I'm saying? Like I think it's female socialization but in a different way than she thought. um Cass says, I know this may shock her, but libidos can change. Yeah. She also didn't mention the ages of any of these lesbians she was talking about. Like, to me, because, okay, maybe I'm crazy, but I thought, like, when you're in perimenopause or menopause or something, that you suddenly, like, have more of a sex drive. Am I wrong? And that you, like, can have, like, very good sex at that age. So, wouldn't it track? Maybe I'm completely nuts. I don't know actually very much about menopause. I really need to read our bodies ourselves. It's, like, on the list eventually. Okay. And I was like, so if you were like in a relationship with like a lesbian relationship for like, say you got together when you were like 35 and you've been in a relationship for like 30 years. So then if you both go through menopause around the same time, shouldn't your sex life pick up? Right? Um yeah, anyway, I don't know. Like she like I've said many times, the entire premise that like less sex is a bad thing is like kind of dumb to me. Um and like for her to take it so seriously as to the point of like any more sex, anything that can result in more sex, whether it's like cheating or like opening up your relationship is a positive thing. I'm like it just lacked so much nuance, I feel. Like when she first started discussing like the breakdown of sex in her lesbian relationships, I was like, okay, so now we're gonna learn like, the stereotypes that um the stereotypes that lead people to be talking about lesbian bed death, or like the issues in lesbian relationships that lead them to stop having sex. And like she kind of covered that, but it was like very, I don't know, postmodern or something. Okay, what else did I write down here? Page 109. What does it say? Oh yeah, okay. Again in the BDSM section. So at some point in the essay, she talks about how lesbians are too connected. They're too fused together. Remember how she's like, it's about that like exportation importation theory about how you need like contrast to have like sexual chemistry basically. Um and so like when you become like more fused, you lose the sexual chemistry because you're less contrasting. Um but then when she has that opinion, which okay, fine, that's what she says. Then later on in the essay, like to me it's like this is like internally inconsistent, which is why I'm bringing it up. Um then later in the essay she talks about the like yeah, the power exchange thing. And I'm like, isn't that like an even more extreme version of fusion? Or if you were already like too fused before that and then you do the power exchange, would you become like hyper infused, like hyper fused, or like shouldn't that be making it worse rather than better? Um Madam says, I think that's a myth. Opposites don't equal great relationships. Blood Moon says, having bad relationships with women, yes. I think we can be too close with each other. More emotional distance can be a good thing. Yeah, trauma bonded, says Maple. I agree. But like, I do think like for sure lesbians are, because who brought this up? Someone brought this up in the other live chat. I don't know, whatever. I'm not gonna find it. But that part of why lesbians are so dependent is that they don't have as much connection with their family generally as straight people do, right? So it's like their partner becomes like their entire family in like a lot of ways, like emotionally. Um, I also, when she said, I think it was Michelle who said that, and when she said that, it made me think like that's also why I think a lot of straight people stay together. Because also remember, book is published in 1987, so whatever that study is that she referenced about couples breaking up in the instances of sex, it's obviously like pre 19 mid like 80s or whatever. How many women want to leave their marriage but cannot because of like heterosexual society? Lesbians do not have that fucking problem. They're not gonna have to like explain to their parents why they left a good man with a good job or whatever it is, right? They are never gonna have that situation, or almost never gonna have that situation. Whereas straight women, it's like a huge social pressure to stay in a relationship you don't want to be in. Lesbians don't have that. And like it was kind of weird to me that she never mentioned any of the positives to why lesbians change relationships a lot. Like, I don't know. I'm like a romantic, I'd like to like settle down with some dyke and be together for like 70 years or whatever. But like I recognize like humans are fucking changeable. Like your libido changes, your personality changes, your values change, whatever. Like people change. So maybe like in a way you could read this essay and think, "Oh, lesbians recognize when they're no longer compatible." Well, in a way. Lesbians recognize when they're no longer compatible and they leave each other to like pursue relationships where they're more compatible with the other partner. Straight couples don't do that because they stay together for fucking ever, in according to the data she shares in this essay. Is that a positive thing? I don't think so. Um, Matt Adams says you can be similar and still have distinct lives. Yeah. So the whole thing with like the import export and like opposites attract and all that, really what it made me think about is like, so like dating criteria or like sexual whatever criteria, like when you make the decision that I'm going to date this person, have sex with this person, not person, woman, my bad. Um, Although this does apply to everyone. I think that you have, like, a list of things that you do want and things that you don't want, and I think that this is based on, like, things that I want them to have in common with me, things that I want them to have that are different from me. I never really thought about it that way, so I'm glad that she brought that up, those 2 different things that made me, like, come to that conclusion. Um, Because there are things that I want in common with a partner, that I, like, need in common with a partner. For example, that we're both lesbians, right? But there's other things that, whether it's similar or different, I'm kind of like, when I imagine myself with a woman, I imagine myself with a masculine woman. But this is not like a hard criteria. So there's, like, differences to me that do matter and differences to me that don't matter that much. Things that I want to be the same and things that I don't need to be the same. I think the way she was describing, like, that lesbians are too similar to each other so they lose their chemistry was, like, very, very oversimplistic. Um, and she basically acted like unless you're in a butch-femme relationship, you're too similar or something. Like, it's very, I mean, maybe that's an unfair conclusion to draw from her essay, but that's how it read to me. Um, Lesbian cabin goals. Honestly, I'm, like, a very city person. Like, I was born in, like, one of the busiest cities in Toronto. Like, I'm a very, very city-oriented person. I don't think I could survive. Like, I think I would like a cabin if it was, like, a 20 or 30-minute drive from a major city, which in Canada is pretty doable. Like, if you think of it, if I accept that any city, like, over 1,000,000 is a major city, so that's pretty doable, but anyway, I have to go to the washroom again. I will be right back. Blood Moon says, "Not sure if off topic, but I really like the idea of apartments, couples of A partners, couples that don't live together, like living in different apartments and seeing each other on the weekends and stuff." Yeah, I've thought about that. Like, you know, because I've thought about doing kind of long distance relationships, you know, like for lesbians, or especially if you're like a rad femme, you only want to date like turf lesbians. The dating pool is pretty small. So, like, you know, if I dated someone who's like within 2 or 3 hours of me, then I could go spend every weekend there, even if we don't see each other every day. Because, like, I think I was codependent in my last relationship, and I like, how the fuck do I avoid that? um, Lady cops are sexy. I don't give a fuck, says Clown World. I mean, yeah. Female athletes are sexy. Female cops are sexy. I'm very anti-military, but like female soldiers are also sexy. Yeah. Um, and it's not on topic at all. Blood Moon. I mean, literally anything to do with lesbians or feminism is always on topic. um, but I thought what you meant, because like, okay, like the whole cabin thing. I mentioned this to you guys before. Like, to me, the dream is to like own a condo or an apartment building or something, not huge, like, you know, like 10 units or something, and to have like criteria that everyone who lives there is like a lesbian feminist. Like, that would be like the equivalent to me of like my cabin in the woods, because I'm a city person. Um yeah, thanks for that comment, Blood Moon. Oh yeah. Honestly, guys, I don't think people really watch the discussion videos that much, or the essay video. I mean, people don't really watch these videos that are about the literature, like, if you look at my views. So I feel kind of comfortable saying a lot of stuff here. I like my ex, like, through like a long-term sustained pressure and knowing that I have very little impulse control, like, convinced me to eat meat. And then I'm like an all or nothing person. So once I started eating meat, I was like, okay, so I'm not a vegetarian anymore. But like, I want to be a vegetarian again. I also need to go gluten free again for my health, but that's like a whole extra level of bullshit. But yeah, I don't know. That's one of the things that like I would like to have sameness. Like, I'm at least very conscious of like, me and my ex U-Hauled, like, hardcore. Like, in the first month we were together, I think we only, like, slept in different houses or apartments or whatever for, like, 4 nights or something, and then we, like, moved in together, like, a month later. So, I'm very conscious, like, I shouldn't U-Haul again. Like, if I am like, not if, when I am dating another woman, that, like, we should, like, intentionally, like, live separately and have separate lives for, like, you know, like, 6 months or something before we even consider moving in. Um No, I know there's a couple different women's buildings. There's one Amsterdam, one in Barcelona, and one in Berlin. Um, like a women's land thing. Yeah, exactly. But like in like, cuz no offense to the whole like homesteading thing. Obviously, like, if you want to do that, good for you. But like, that's not my jam. Like, you look up women's land and it's like out in the middle of fucking nowhere for obvious reasons. Like, and I'm glad that they have that option and like everything, but like, I would feel so isolated. Like, where I went to university was, like, still, like, a city, the second biggest city in the province, but it felt like the middle of fucking nowhere because I'm from Toronto. So even though it was a city of, like, 50,000, I was like, "There's no one here and it's abandoned and I can't live here, and I'm just waiting till I can go back to, like, the real city." So I couldn't survive, like. Yes, Godspeed, corner. Or goddess speed. Okay. Ugh, the bisexuality stuff was so cringe. How many essays in this book does there need to be telling lesbians that they would be better off sexually if they considered having sex with men? And it's like, it's so subtle too. Like, to me, it reminds me of like Abigail Schreier's book because when I read that book, there was so many like implied, like it's not even the words she uses or like the things she says, it's like the tone and the content in is so heavily implying like, women would be better off if they could like settle down and get married to a man. Like, well, the thing like if you can't have kids, you can't be happy. She says explicitly multiple times. But like this is like the third no, this is the second essay in this book where it's like explicitly or very very heavily implied that lesbian women would have better sex lives or a better sense of self or more authentic or some shit like that if they had sex with men. Um Honestly, reading this essay to me felt like this because you know how people are always asking like when did it like flip from like radical feminism to queer theory? Like this woman calls herself a lesbian feminist and talks about like hardcore radical feminists right in this essay. And she's trying to position herself as like I'm a moderate, like I see both sides and like I've integrated my perspective, right? I think this is like the queering of feminism, right? Um but like Mad Adam, honestly, I agree that there's no way to be moderate. Honestly, Matt Adam, like I wouldn't mind. Like I was saying before, I've said this for the last essay that was like you should like what was that essay? It was basically like if you at some point in that last essay that mentioned bisexuality, it was like if you want to be more enlightened, you need to like learn to enjoy the things that bisexual women enjoy or some stupid shit like that. I actually would love to read an essay about bisexuality. Maple, I opened your essay, I read like the first paragraph, and then I was like, I have things to do because last night I was so tired after the streaming. um The author's a lying bisexual, so yes, exactly, exactly. Like, it also feels like such a punch in the gut that, the author throughout the whole thing was like, "Us lesbians, us lesbians, us lesbians," and it was like, "Oh, yeah, we've all like, a lot of us have had positive sexual encounters with men that we look upon favorably," and I'm like, "What? So you're not a lesbian then?" Like, I don't know, for me, I think it's possible that a lesbian can have, like, a very deep emotional bond, like, non-romantic, like, a deep emotional bond with a guy. Like, the way, like, a romantic partnership works, like, if not even because it's, like, actually romantic, but just, like, you live together, you, like, share goals, you, like, do things together. So you could have, like I know lesbians who are like, "Yeah, like, my ex-husband from many years ago, but, like, we helped each other get into our careers and whatever." Like, I don't think that there's nothing a lesbian could look at in her past male relationships and be like, "It was 100% all bad," right? Or, like, whatever. You know what I'm saying, okay? But to say, like, the sex was good, I'm like or, like, the romantic attraction was good, I'm like, "So then you're not a fucking lesbian, are you?" I don't know. Like, I think it's a very nuanced topic, like, that's a topic I would love it if there was an essay in this book on how to tell like, how to help with yourself to, like, navigate the potentiality of am I a bisexual or am I lesbian? That would be a very interesting topic. I would love to learn more about bisexuality from, like, a radical feminist or lesbian separatist perspective, but, like, all of this shit is, like, you need to be better at it. Like, Maple says, "When people misrepresent their orientation, everybody loses, including themselves." Very, very much agree. It's, like, such a self-own to write a essay about lesbians and then to be like, "Yeah, but I like having sex with men," so everything was fucking pointless, wasn't it? Um Madame says it's okay to just be bisexual. Yes, just like it's okay to not be a radical feminist. If you're not a radical feminist, that's okay. Don't call yourself one. That's fine. Why do you need to call yourself that? Like, I don't know. I And also for her to be like, lesbians are insecure. Like she has like the whole like 3 pages on bisexuality or something. And I'm like, and it's not even like I thought that the way the essay from the title of the essay, I thought it was about like the evolution of lesbian identity, like or like potentiality for lesbian relationships. Like, like growing up and being like, oh yeah, I'm a lesbian. I'm gonna try dating now. Thought that's what it was gonna be about, but it wasn't about that. Um oh fuck, I lost my train of thought. Oh yeah. The bisexuality angle was literally like, this is why the lesbians are mean to the bis. And I'm like, excuse me, right? The book is indeed called Lesbian Psychologies, Mad Adam. I honestly feel like this book, some of the essays, like the last 2, were fucking on point. The first 3 made me want to like punch myself in the face. They were so bad. This one is also quite a bad essay. What a disaster, says Maple. Very accurate, okay? OP is a disaster. Like, I just can't imagine. Imagine writing a book like 4D transitioners, and then you like in the middle of your essay you go on like a big long rant about how like I mean, I don't even fucking know. It's just ridiculous, okay? Um okay. Yeah, I know you're a bisexual, Maple, so you know. Yeah, exactly. It's very stupid. Um well, what was I bringing it up though for? She was like, "Oh yeah," she said the lesbians are mean to the bis because the lesbians are insecure and the potentiality that they could also be bi at some point in the future is like scary to them. And I'm like, "But you're obviously insecure because you are claiming to be a lesbian when you're fucking bisexual." So it's just that whole paragraph or 2 was like projection. um And then also that thing where she was like, some of the radical feminists have said that like I'm male identified, which for those of you who are just tuning in, maybe you don't know what that means is like to see things from like the patriarchal perspective. That you have kind of like internalized like the male gaze rather than like identify as a man. Oh, bye, Clown World. Okay. And and then she goes on to be like, yes, lesbians can learn from like the sexual dynamics of gay men. I'm like, so your proof that you don't see things from the male perspective is to tell us that sexuality that excludes men needs to imitate the sexuality that is only men? What? Um, I don't know. Exactly. Blood moons. What the fuck can lesbians learn about men fucking men? Fucking exactly, bro. Um, yeah, very, very stupid. Um, because on one hand, she is like, we need to be sure that we're not like, like when she talks about the butch-femme stuff, she's like, we need to be sure that we are not that we are doing it like as women, like from the women perspective, and not just like imitating heterosexism, which I actually appreciated. Kind of a nuanced. I feel like her view on the butch femme thing was like more nuanced than I expected, and also like because she's like a product of her era, just very interesting. I thought that was a very interesting section, even if I didn't agree with a bunch of it. Um, but then, isn't it like a very heterosexist for lesbians to try to imitate the sexual practices that revolve around penises or the sexual behavior of men? Like the way that she kept equating how men and women are the same and being like, look, so the gay men, they like cheat on each other a lot, but they still stay in their relationships. So, if lesbians did that, it would work the same for them. And I'm like, but women and men are different. So I don't think it would just like solve all the women's problems. Um, and also, she mentioned several times like the reason, like this whole idea that like lesbians need to be like emotionally married to each other in order to like will have sex or want to have sex or like experience attraction or acknowledge their attraction or however you want to say it. So if that's the case, she never is like, oh, this is how lesbians need to unlearn this like what is it? Gray ace sexuality or whatever. She's not like she's just like I don't know. Okay, I'm not articulating myself well. If she is conceding the point that lesbians in general require like a high emotional commitment to like comfortably have sex with each other, then wouldn't having sex outside your relationship, as she calls it, tricking, wouldn't this destroy the relationship if it's built on like emotional intimacy that's built on trust, and then having sex with other like if I'm not saying that like monogamy is like the best thing ever and everybody should be forced to stay in relationships or whatever, but I'm just saying like if that's her premise, then her conclusion that you need to have sex outside your relationship to like expand your sexuality to make your relationship survive makes no fucking sense, does it? Maple says lesbians should be more like gay men is so insanely toxic. How about gay men should be more like lesbians? Lesbians are fucking great. I agree. Um, no, gay men are so arrogant about lesbians. They don't think they have anything to learn from us. Yeah. Oh, I also thought it was so funny in the BDSM section how she was like, like feminists' main, like one of their main issues with BDSM is that it's like eroticizing or like glorifying like the differences in power among the sexes. And that, like, we don't like that, so why would you want to celebrate it kind of thing. And she is like, but no, no, no. There's some research that it's not that like kinks or whatever are not developed based on like the male female like angle, that they're developed based on like the parent child relationship. And I'm like, so you think that makes it better? It just makes like that doesn't solve anything. Like it's very stupid. Um yeah. Michelle in the last I'm looking at the last live chat. She says um I would be very worried about training my brain to see any form of harm as erotic. That's something else too. Like at the beginning of the essay, she's like, my concern is longevity of like healthy sex and relationships, something along these lines, right? And I'm like, so how is encouraging like you have like a lesbian couple who they've stopped having sex or they rarely have sex, okay? This is like who the essay is about, I guess, or for, or to prevent or something. How is encouraging one or both of them to go out and have random hookups and engage in S&M and all this shit? How is that going to contribute to the longevity of that relationship and the sex between those two women? Like, presumably, if they haven't been doing S&M, it's because they're not really into it. That didn't occur to them because they didn't have like a burning desire to do that shit. So they're gonna go out and do it now, and like internalize this like violent. What does it say here? They will train their brains to see any form of harm, to see a form of harm as erotic. How is that going to translate to the sex? Like, obviously, their sex life, not obviously. Maybe their sex life wasn't perfect, but I don't think bringing violence into it is going to solve anything. It's very stupid. Because like she even says at some point in the essay, she says like what was it? 25% of these are the statistics she gives in this essay for this time period, right? Pre 1980s. 25% of women will be sexually assaulted before the age of 18, and 2/3 of lesbians have been in heterosexual marriages. This is the data that she gives. And then she says, so it's understandable if like heterosexual sex is repulsive to you and if you've been abused, that like all sex, even if it's with like someone of the same sex, right, has taken on like it's been like your sexuality has been damaged, right? She's like, that's understandable. So how come in that context she sees how violence can have a negative effect on sex, but in the S&M context she cannot acknowledge that violence might have a negative effect on sex like globally, like in the long run, not just like a one-off situation, you know what I'm saying? Um Maple says if you look at the big picture in general, lesbians have the best qualities a human can possess. If you survey lesbians about their opinions and what they care about, of course I'm generalizing, but I mean, Stuff like altruism, environmentalism, caring about women and children. Yeah, I very much agree. But she talks about how, like, the way she tries to bring it up, I think, to, like, cushion how stupid the stuff she's saying is that, you need differences, you need, like, some kind of a friction to create, like, sexual chemistry. So, that's what's good about BDSM in her opinion, is that you've created this kind of, like, difference that is the friction to provide the chemistry. But I'm like, "But why does it have to be that?" Like, what are the different types of, like, arousal she brings up? Fear, pain, sexual, and there's a third one. But I'm like, just because these are all different states of, like, physical, like, heightened physical sensation in your body, like arousal, when you're, like, scared or when you're in pain, right? Like, oh my god, and when she referenced the Rita Mae Brown thing, where she was like, she literally in one sentence is like, "Yeah, my client liked to be whipped to the point where she had welts for days and was, like, in pain," or whatever. And then the next sentence, she is like, "Yeah, but, like, in that Rita Mae Brown book, like, right before that woman has an orgasm, the girlfriend puts an ice cube on her clit," and I was like, one of you guys said, you were like, "That is, like, no comparison at all." Like, those are totally different things, like, one is, like, there's a difference between, like, S&M, like, BDSM, like, kink. There's a difference between that and, like, sensory play, you know? Like, oh, isn't there, like, lube that's, like, spicy, like, that's, like, hot or whatever? Okay, so that is causing, like, some level of, like, pain, I guess, if it's, like, tingling or hot or something. Do you think anybody who uses that, it's, like, equivalent to, like, being whipped? Just the way the equivalence she drew was ridiculous. I was like, "What are you talking about?" Like, um Yes, Mad Adam. Mad Adam says, "That's also going off of the assumption that the reason there is a lack of sex is because women's sex is just boring, that we just aren't exciting enough." Yeah, so that we need to, like, go outside and import something to make our, like, the lesbian sex more exciting. But to me, this is an exemplification of her female socialization, like I was saying before, that sex is, like, a thing that, like, happens to women or that we, like, absorb from the outside and enact rather than something that comes from ourselves. Like, to me, the entire essay was basically arguing you should be, like, inauthentic with your sexuality, right? That you should, like, take on sexuality, so in just so you're doing something different than you used to be doing before, because what you're doing before is bad, so anything is better than what you're doing before, because then, like, more exciting. People say maybe women are so exciting we don't need to put on a goddamn leather costume to have sex with each other. That was something else too. She was like, "We need to, like, expand, like, the variety and expressions of, like, female sexuality." And, like, to me, I kind of view it the same way that I view gender. I was like, the true diversity of femaleness exists within females, not within anybody who exhibits femininity, right? Because if you're looking only at femaleness, then you will view everything from, like, extremely, like, masculine or androgynous all the way to, like, very feminine, right? Same thing with sex. If you look at, like, non-violent sex, within that there's, like, a huge amount of diversity. But if to your mind diversity is, like, boring sex or crazy sex, then the diversity you're having within the, like, healthy non-violent sex is, like, very, very limited, right? Like, I think you're actually limiting the diversity of the sex you're having if you view it that way, isn't it? Like, at least that's how I would see it. I don't know. Michelle said, like, the ice cube thing is almost the same as, like, bringing a feather into bed or something. Yeah, it's, like, sensory play. I've seen rad femme discussions about this on Tumblr, like, back in the day. When was that? 2015 or something. Like, there's a difference between, like, you know, I bit my partner because it feels good, and, like, I whipped her till she was bleeding. There's, like, a big difference. Like, something is, like, sensory, and then something is, like, power and control and, like, pain. There's, like, a difference. Yeah. Yeah, she has no nuance. It's very black and white. Um, that too about how she's like, well, some feminists say that like, monogamy is like based on men owning women and like, fair enough, true. But does that mean like again, does that mean to just do the opposite is like the problem? I mean, the solution? It's like extremely reactionary, like with zero like very, very little thought in put into it. Or like even if you just reverse the behavior, well, what's the like the sex liberation movement is a great example of this. Like women would get married and be stuck in a marriage and be stuck with this guy, and all of their sexuality was like wrapped up in what does this guy want from me, right? So the reaction was like, women, don't get married and settle down, have sex with everybody you like and have as much fun as you like. But it's like, so the behavior, they made a 180 on the behavior. Okay. What is the result of both of those though? The result of both of those is women having it's like a very, very superficial perspective to be like, the behavior was this, so do the opposite behavior, but ignore all of the like consequences. It's very stupid to me. Yeah, Blood Moon, I'm the same. Blood Moon says, I think monogamy is beneficial for women as long as women are not stuck in a relationship and they can freely leave or divorce. Yeah. Well, I'm like critical of heterosexuals in general. So, yes. I don't really I would but when I'm speaking about lesbians, I agree. All right. Clown World said before that she tries to avoid using the words feminine and masculine because they have such nebulous meanings. I also feel that way. I also feel they're intrinsically linked to gender, gender roles, stereotypes, sex roles. So it's like to use them at all, I'm conceding something that's against my politics, you know? That's why I try to like put quotes when I say like masculine women and stuff cuz like I agree. And something that she brings up in the essay is that the butch femme thing or the mask femme thing, it's like very limiting the language we have for it. And I do think like the butch femme thing, regardless of like the actual concept with the butch femme relationship, is like an acknowledgement of the diversity of like what lesbians look like, right? And I think that it's like it would be good to have language for that that wasn't like at least etymologically not linked to like gender roles and sex stereotypes, you know? Because like when you hear the word femme, you literally think feminine, and when I think feminine, I'm thinking of all of like the my feminist thoughts on like beauty standards and shit. So like, yeah, they're also kind of undefinable depending on what you're talking about, and I think that's like stupid. That's like that's the point of language is to like know what you're talking about. Oh, that's the thing too. So she keeps bringing up gay male relationships and being like, well, they cheat on each other and stay together, so that's proof that it works or some shit. And I'm like, but I don't really, I don't have any gay male friends right now, actually. Well, I don't have any male friends really. I have one male friend, I think. Yeah. He, well, someone's coming to stay with us tomorrow, but it's more like my roommate's friend. Whatever. I don't spend time with men, is my point. Uh, what was I talking about? Oh, yeah. When I was friends with gay men, all of the gay men I was friends with, they were cheating on each other and their partners and shit. And it did like significant damage to the relationship. I don't think that the fact that they stayed together was proof that the relationship was good or that the sex was good either. Like, I think that it was just proof that they I don't know. I think gay men are like, I don't know how to articulate this. I think gay men have this thing where they want to be cared for or like taken care of or like, like some kind of healthy, positive, holistic, like wholesome type thing. Um, but that doesn't really jive with their whole like I want to have as much sex as possible all the time thing that they seem to do generally. So, like she even mentions it in the essay that gay men learn to like separate their emotions from their sex. And so to me, it's I think that a lot of the times when gay men stay in relationships where they're like unhappy, it's like this thing of like, well, this is the person who like supports me and like nurtures me and nobody else does that for me. So like I have to stay in this relationship for that, even if I'm getting everything else elsewhere. Like I think it's like a kind of well, I think it's unhealthy a lot of the times. I don't think it's necessarily good just because they were together for a longer duration of time. Um, yes, Maple. Maple says, I've known gay guys where one of them cheated and the other was fucking devastated. Quote, gay men cheat on each other and don't care, end quote, is pretty offensive to gay men too, if you think about it. Yes. Like, isn't that, I mean, I obviously don't really care, but isn't that like homophobic to be like, yeah, gay men are just sex hounds? Like, I actually kind of agree with that. But isn't that like a homophobic thing to like ramp on about like what are gay men? Gay men are the sexually like promiscuous people. That's what it is to be a gay man. That's like at least the way she referenced them in this essay. She only referenced gay men as they're more sexually promiscuous, and that's a better thing lesbians should like live up to. Um, it's like in the other essay when bisexuality was brought up, and they were like, bisexuality is like being open to new things and like experiencing like like a broader spectrum of feelings for like all males and females and like blah 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 blah. It was like it was buying into the whole idea that like, bis are sluts and they need like both men and women at the same time. Like it was very very biphobic. I know there's like a bunch of I mean there's like variety in every demographic, right? Like there are tons of lesbians, at least especially now, who they're only into like hookups and like chem sex parties and like whatever the fuck. And there are equally like I knew a gay guy who had like very very like traditional views, kind of like he wanted to like date a guy for a while and like get comfortable with him and then maybe have sex with him and like he wasn't I blame Shane. Yeah, it's all her fault. Um he wasn't into the whole like hooking up and like anonymous sex and all that. Like he in my opinion, he had like a lesbian perspective on like relationships and sex. Like that's the best way I could understand it. I was like, "Oh, you feel the same way as I do about sex and relationships." And he like trained himself out of it over a period of years to the point where he was now having like anonymous hookups because he wanted to like fit in better with gays. And I was like, don't you think you might have had like a more like fulfilling sex life if you didn't do that? Like having any amount of like having a higher number of sexual encounters is more important than the quality of the sexual encounters. Or like if you had lots of sex that was mediocre, that's better than having like you know what I mean? I just like it's very sad. Um yeah, anyway, my point was just that like there's diversity. So like why I feel like this essay was extremely superficial and two-dimensional. She was like, all lesbians are like these radical feminist types who are against all of the things that you need to have in a relationship, and they're all too similar to each other, and all of them are like these prudes. And the gay men, they're sexually liberated and they're having lots of sex, so we should all be like that. Like it's very, very simplistic. I didn't like that at all. Um, it turns sex into a scorecard. Very true. Um, I don't know, and like maybe you guys can share what you think about this, but I've only ever been with one woman, and like all of the like hetero stuff I did when I was a teenager was like virtual. Thank God. Um Hey, Rachel. Is it your lunch break now? uh, what's my point? Yes, I have talked to women who, you know, they were like, "Yeah, I slept with, like, 90 people or something," right? And they're like, "Oh, but, you know, like, the sex that you have when you're in love or when you're, like, when you feel safe, like, in a committed relationship, like, that's so much better. I wish I never would have, like you guys were talking about before. I wish I never would have, like, conditioned myself to be okay with this or that. I wish I never would have, um, learned certain behaviors or, like" you know what I mean? Like, a lot of the women I know who've had tons of sex, they actually, like, feel like because they had so much sex in, like in a context where quality was, like, irrelevant. Like, I know so many lesbians who are into hookup culture who engaged in kinky sex, not because they wanted to, but because, like, the way I see it is they basically viewed it as, like, the point of me going out to is to have sex, and so if the person who wants to have sex with me wants to have XYZ kind of strange sex, well, at least I'm having sex. Like, that's the mentality they had about it because it's all this thing of, like, how much you have sex is more important than what you're doing or how it's affecting you or how much you enjoy it. And then they, like, were, like, you know, conditioned into all kinds of, like you guys were saying before, or Michelle was saying, or whoever was saying, like, to, like, normalize pain, or violence as erotic. Um Yeah, exactly, Rachel. I'm kind of thinking about you, like, among these women. Rachel says, "Yo, that's me. I had lots of sex and it broke me down and it was so unhealthy for my self-worth." Yeah. Honestly, when I first realized I was a lesbian, I was, like, so excited to, like, go out and try having sex that I kind of for a while was like, "You should just, like, get okay with it, like, just learn to be okay with it, like, you can do, like, a hookup if you want to." And, like, I'm so glad I never did that. Sounds like a horrible experience. Um, yeah, okay. Mad Adam, you were talking about how you're, like, multitasking while you're listening to me. The reason that I, like, listen to so many audiobooks, like, I'm always listening to something. Either I'm listening to an audiobook or I'm listening to, like, a YouTube video or I'm listening to, like, an AI voice reading Reddit. I'm listening to something all the time. Having a shower, doing dishes, all the time listening to something. Um, so I totally feel you. Oh, Komotasha was here. I didn't dab for her. Yeah, it was strange how at the very beginning, well, not at the end of the essay, I understood why she did it the way she did it. She talks about all of these gay men having promiscuous sex and how that's like a great thing. We should all like live up to that. But then, and Michelle brought up like the AIDS crisis. Like this is like 1987. This is like when is like the peak? It's kind of like nearing the peak of the AIDS crisis, really, isn't it? Or the peak of the AIDS crisis. Um, so she mentions at the beginning, like, oh yeah, uh, um, like, this has nothing to do with AIDS, and, like, obviously that's a serious problem, but, like, I'm not blaming it on, like, men's sexuality or some nonsense. Who cares? Whatever. But I think she just put that in there at the very beginning in her list of caveats so that you couldn't make that, um, criticism of her, but, like, I don't care. I'm still gonna make that criticism of you. It's very stupid. Um, People says there's a ton of pressure to be some kind of Shane-esque female Casanova. Yeah. Especially I don't know this from, like, firsthand experience, but from talking, because, you know, I've never been to a fucking dyke bar in my life. From talking to, like, older lesbians, apparently, especially if you're, like, a more, like, androgynous or masculine lesbian, 'cause, um, yeah, and I don't think that's a good thing for them or anyone else. Like, yeah. Oh, AIDS death peaked in 1996. Okay, well, whatever. I'm just saying, 1987, like, shit was serious. Like, it was definitely not okay. Okay. Um, radically alone says, I've been pressured to have sex with men pretty bad, the pressure, and I personally remain celibate and have even before I got into radical feminism. No, I'm so glad. Oh, something else. Marilyn Fry, the metaphysics, lesbian separatist metaphysics book. I don't know why I'm pointing at this. She talked about how power begins at, you have power if you have like the the first thing you can look to do you have any power at all or no power whatsoever, is are you allowed to say no. She's like, from there you can assess how much power you have, what kind of power you have, whatever. The starts with, are you allowed to say no? Like, this essay, the whole essay is like, how can you say yes to more things that you're not really into? Um, I don't know. The whole thing just rubbed me very wrong. I think that the reason this essay in particular affected me in such a specific way is because I can see the elements that are like radical feminist, and then I can see like how it's getting like perverted into this crazy bull self postmodern whatever the fuck. Um I don't know, I was gonna make some kind of a point, but I lost my train of thought. But yeah, radically aligned. I'm very glad that you were able to say no and like have control over your own body and your own sexual history, like sexual experiences in the present, I guess. But yeah, it's so many women are so hurt from sex. Like, Rachel, I'm gonna say yes to saying no. Yes. But yeah, so many women are like fucking damaged from like the disturbing sex that they've had. Like, how can it be a bad thing to encourage more women to say no to sex that can damage them in the long run? Okay. I think I'm done this stream today. I've had a very long day. Um oh, I'm sorry, Clown World. Okay. Yeah. So, no stream tomorrow. Almost definitely a stream on Saturday. I haven't scheduled it yet, but I think we're gonna do it. And then for sure a stream on Sunday. Uh I know my schedule is all messed up because I missed the essay on Monday, so everything is off by a day. But I will like reorganize it and schedule other stuff. Like, there is an essay scheduled for tomorrow, but I forgot I have like a thing to go to, so I can't do the stream. No, thank you guys for being here. If you weren't here, I'd just be talking to myself. Um, I do notice that like over the last 3 months, the amount of women who tune in for the essays and books is like gotten progressively much, much, much lower. I'm not trying to like shame or blame anyone or whatever, but um, I just wonder what's about to happen. Like, am I gonna get to a point where there's like 6 of you who watch all my streams and nobody else watches my videos? Like, I wouldn't be against that. I think that's kind of funny. I wonder what's. Oh, and since I made that post, I've lost a bunch of subscribers. Um, which is like kind of funny actually. Anyway, uh, yeah. Also, just if any of you are on Reddit, I mean not Reddit, Getter. Yeah. Yes, Matt Adam, exactly. Like, to me, quality over quantity. I just made like a community post on YouTube about like the thing that went down with Joey Bright and Dragon. But now there's some anonymous account on Getter who's running around and freaking out and warning like every single human being, well, all of the women who comment a lot on YouTube, the dragon is a man and to watch out for her. And I'm like, but I've literally met up with her and she's not a man. So anyway. Yeah. Anyway. No, it's crazy. They're like spamming people. They have like one post about how like Dragon Kittigan is like an AGP or something, and they're just like adding it to all the different accounts. Like someone is just like trolling. It's ridiculous. I hope that's not the reason she's not here today. So disrespectful, says Julia. Yes, and it's because she is like a D-trans butch lesbian. Like, why are they saying that about Dragon? I think it's because people got pissed off with like the Joey Bright Dragon controversy or whatever. Like, I think they're trying to take Joey's side, but because they're like a bunch of them are like insane. They think that the best way to do this. Yes, Rachel, exactly. Rachel says, love the TRA tactics of telling people what to think and who to talk to. Yeah. Their response is to like their like natural reaction is to like do these insane tactics. Yeah. So like trying to like discredit her instead of being like, oh yeah, maybe there's something to talk about here. Maybe we could have like a nuanced discourse about this. Like, no, she's just like a man who's trying to cause problems, make her shut up. Like, it's so stupid. Are about to get more pissed off. I'm gonna let loose on Get Her today. I support free speech and all that. Anyway, I'm not trying to like mobilize the masses. I'm just saying, if you see that shit, I'm telling you that I know Dragon is not a man. Because like this is the internet. Could be lots of people are lying. I've actually met Dragon though, so I'm telling you, I know she's not a man. If you see that shit, I'm telling you that this is not the case. Yeah. Okay. So I'm gonna let this. This is gonna be it for the stream. Yeah. Tomorrow no stream. Rachel says maligning D-trans lesbians is over the line. Very much agree. Yeah, things are clown. I've seen some of this. Things are devolving, I would say. For sure. I'm trying, some could argue successfully or unsuccessfully, to keep my head out of all this shit, but people be grumpy. That's a very optimistic way of categorizing the situation. Yeah. Yeah, very very, very extremist. I like, you know how sometimes TRAs call radfems reactionaries? I think that like this is actually reactionary, and I don't think that any of these women really are radfems. Like, I think they're definitely GCs, or not even. They call themselves pro reality, right? Um, why do you love my approach, Julia? What does that mean? What do you think my approach is? Um, but yeah, not she, a bunch of these women, like some of the YouTubers and the commenters, like they're clearly not actually radical feminist. Um, also, just I don't know. Oh, I was talking to people, but you too. Okay, okay. Oh, the people be grumpy thing. Yes, okay, okay. Um, Rachel says throwing D-trans women and even TIFs under the bus, the way they're going about it, is anti-feminist. Yes, it's literally like, I know I've said this like 1,000 times. It's like, oh, this woman over here, she hates herself and is like destroying herself, either metaphysically or physically or psychologically or whatever. So that means it's okay for me to destroy her and attack her as well because she's already doing it to herself. Like, how is that fucking feminist? I don't know. Yeah, I agree, Matt Adams. She says, I think when you spend so long treating others as the enemy, it's hard to turn it off and recognize when a disagreement is not an attack instantly. Yes. Um, it's also extremely concerning to me when people get to the point of, well, people, I don't give a shit about men. When women get to the point of anyone who disagrees with me is attacking my like humanity or my personhood. Like when you take everything like personally, like it's an existential threat with you. Like that is a sign of like a very unhealthy mindset that you Like, it's very, very concerning. It should not be encouraged to have this mindset and behavior. Um, yeah. I try really, really hard that if somebody says something to me that I take personally, that I stop, like, take a breath and, like, consider it. And if I can't, which happens more often than I would like to admit, I will, like, "You know what? Okay, I need to, like, put down the app or put down the phone or, like, leave the website or whatever, so that I'm not, like, actually, like, publishing my purely personal reaction." You know what I mean? I don't know. Um, to give myself time to, like, decompress and actually think about what happened and, how should I take that? Like, why did they say that? Like, I don't know. Um, it's very interesting to me, like, you know how TRAs, they get, like, I've talked about this before. Where did I talk about it? I think I did an interview with Benjamin Boyce and Sasha Ayad where I talked about this. It was, like, 2.5 years ago now. You get, dopamine hits from using social media, right? But I think, like, an even more extreme version of that, like, raging at people on social media, you get almost a euphoric or manic, like, not actually, but, like, euphoric or manic from, like, fighting with people on the internet. My body is, like, clenched, like, my heart is faster, like, I feel, like, flesh body that I'm, like, fighting with somebody and it's, like, doing something for me, and it's, like, all I'm doing is typing some random shit onto Twitter or Tumblr or something. And so TRAs, they get into this habit and they think that that is activism, like, that physical reaction from to the words the people on the internet are saying, that is in their perception fighting against the patriarchy, fighting against oppression, blah 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 blah, right? They view it as, like, this is a real act I've taken because this is my response. I think that there's a bunch of these, like, GC or pro reality women who are basically doing the same thing, but from the other side. And they're like, well, I got angry and upset about it and I flipped my shit, so that's activism, or I did something useful. And I'm like, I'm not, obviously, feminist anger, like, I totally support that and whatever. But just, like, getting your dopamine hits off of, like, fighting with random people on the internet, that's not, like, activism or constructive. Like, it's like a selfish act that you're trying to recontextualize as something else, and it's not healthy. Um Clown says, "At this point, I'm like, this online drama shit is stupid. I care more about what's going on IRL." Yeah. Like, for me, well, YouTube is, like, its own thing because this is, like, kind of a bridge between the online and the real life because, like, you can see my face and I'm talking to you guys in real time. But, um, excuse me, I view my online as, like, a conduit to the in-person. Like, maybe it's, like, slow and indirect, but it's, like, to me, it's, like, it's a pathway towards the in-person. It's, like, a means to an end. The online isn't for the sake of being the online. Um, and I also find all this drama stuff stupid. I try not to get too involved, but, there's some stuff where I feel I can't keep my mouth shut, like, because it's so grating. That's something too, Maple. Feminist anger is great when it's against an actual misogynist, not another woman who means well. This is the principle I was saying before, right? So, women are supposed to be nice. This is a behavior, right? So, feminists and GCs who are not feminists look at this and they say, that's bad. Women shouldn't have to be like that, okay? So, they do the same thing that she did in the essay. We should just do the opposite, be mean. Good. So they've changed the behavior from from one position to the radical opposite position. What they have failed to do is look at what is the consequence or the conclusion of both of these behaviors. Has either one of those behaviors, like, to me, it's the same thing as being like, uh, what was the one I listed like 20 minutes ago? I can't remember. But oh yeah, like the being stuck in a marriage and that's all your sexuality, or like not getting married and having sex with as many men as possible. Like, either way, I think it ends up with, like, women not having satisfying sex and women being, like, sexually traumatized. So same thing with this, like with the feminism stuff. It's like, well, the be nice feminism isn't working. So we need to do the be mean feminism, but it's also not working because you're just pushing away different types of women. In each case, you're attracting a certain type of woman and repulsing another type of woman. You're attracting a certain type of woman and repulsing another type of woman. Either one doesn't seem to like solve the problem. No, bye, Rachel. Uh, so yeah, again, it's just like it's a very, very simplistic view of things. I don't think that we need to like be nice or whatever, but I don't think that to me it's like very reactionary to like we'll just do the opposite and everything will be better. Like, did you actually think about what the result of that will be? That's what I was looking for. Result. Um, yeah. I'm totally into feminist anger, but like I said, I think a lot of these women are not even feminists. Like, they're angry at women just for saying things they don't like, not because it's like the thing you said leads into the is like perpetuating this concept, which is like an anti-feminist concept. It's literally just like I said this thing and you don't agree with me, so you're stupid. Like, it's like extremely stupid. Uh, and like a lot of like personality cult type things, like I don't know. Maybe I'll stay on a bit longer and just talk about things that are not the essay. Like, I never want to be infallible. I don't want to be the person that, you know, I go do some crazy shit and everyone's like, no, but you can't say anything because Benji is like a YouTuber, or like because Benji did some activism, or like Benji did like this. I don't know. Like, that's very crazy to me. Maple says nothing feminist about being mean as fuck to women. Yeah. And I'm like, again, to me, it's like when I was criticizing like the GC boys club, right? I would harp on and on and on. What is your goal? What have you done? Has it brought you closer to the goal or not? Right? Similarly, I'm like, with these women, a lot of them. I'm being very general because it's about some of the YouTubers, and mostly I think it's about the commenters. But it's kind of like a symbiotic thing. Um Blood Moon. After we finish this book, the next book we are reading is Lesbian Ethics. Yes. No more spoilers. Like, in a way, it's almost like you know how there's like concept that a reason a lot of women are like really misogynistic or like just like volatile to each other is that like lesbian philosophy books, and there aren't a ton of them. So like that, and the other one by Sarah Hoagland, they're like the two, that and the Marilyn Fry, like the three big, like easy to find like lesbian philosophy books. So I'll have to do like more deep searching after those three. Yeah, but oh shit, what was I saying? Oh yeah, this idea that like women are competing against with each other because they want to get like the better men, or to be like perceived better by men, or to be like whatever, get males attention or whatever. Like, this is why women are so mean to each other, because they're trying to, like, when I look at these like GC groups, whether it's like the boys club type or like the like frankly QAnon-esque women on YouTube, either way, I view them as like, oh, it's okay for me to like be shitty to other women because I'm trying to gain some kind of a status, right? I want to be seen as like the most GC or like the most mean femme or whatever. And like being mean to women is okay as long as I get the thing that I want. Just to me, like, this is like an externalization of your internalized misogyny. And so acting on that is not a feminist thing, it's an anti thing, I think. Um hmm. Mabel says, in my experience, it's not the women are competing against each other as much as women seeing each other as acceptable targets for their frustration with their own lives. Yeah, that's kind of what I was trying to say, but you've articulated it better than I have. Um, yeah. I don't know. I think there's like a really, really big difference between like this thing happened and I'm not okay with this and this is my thoughts about it versus like um, you know, this woman said something that I think is bullshit, and I think that she's bullshit, and like fuck her, and let's all attack her now. Like it's or like, oh, you're attacking this woman. Let me find out what she did. Yeah, I support you attacking her. Like it's a very different situation than being like, these are my concerns, and this is why I feel this way. Um, yeah. That's a good thing, Matt Adam. Like everybody should stay off social media. I'm actually thinking of deleting some of my social media. Like even if I don't delete my fake Twitter accounts, maybe I'll just delete the app for a while. Or like same thing with Getter. Maybe if I don't delete my Getter, I'll just delete the Getter app for a while. I don't even go on it that much, but I when I do go on it, I get like really pissed off with all these women being super misogynistic to each other. And like also just so lesbophobic. I actually thought about so was it you guys who told me that VF is Top Dyke? And I couldn't remember a lot about Top. Like I remember the gist of things. So I went up last night on Tumblr for the first time in like a year, and I looked up Top Dyke, and I was like, oh, she is so misogynistic. And I almost feel like getting receipts and like making a video about like this is what like when you're a feminist but you're also misogynist, this is what it looks like. Um, I don't know. I don't want to like engage in drama, but um, the funniest thing to me about the whole thing when I looked her up, she is one of those women who like any woman who will willingly have sex with a man, she views them as like the scum of the earth um who are like you know pleasing the patriarchy or like supporting the whatever. Like but not even to the point of like saying that. Like she has like specific, I can't even remember the terminology, but there like it gets very very vicious on Tumblr with like the lesbians versus the bis versus the hets among the rad femmes. Um like they will call like every single heterosexual woman like a cocksucker or something. Like every single woman who will willingly have sex with a man, that's what you are. You are like a thing that pleases men only. That's all you are now. Um and she's like that. Uh but then she's now like a Karen like sycophant, and Karen's married to a man. So I'm like, but aren't you like one of the mean lesbians who doesn't like non-lesbians, but then you like this non-lesbian? I don't know. The whole thing is extremely bizarre to me. But that's like a very tame one, Maple. Maple, you are on Tumblr. You know what I'm talking about, right? Where like these women become like extremely, extremely misogynistic and like um Bloodmoon says that'd be a great video, but without targeting a woman specifically. Yeah, I think that would be interesting. Okay, give me a second here. Actually, I want to look up some of the language. Maybe you can analyze the language without mentioning anybody specifically. Call. I don't even know. I don't even want to say these things out loud. It's so horrible. Yeah, okay, whatever. I don't even feel comfortable saying any of these words out loud on camera, to be honest with you, so I'm not gonna say any of them. Even that word that I think I've said now twice, I'm not saying that again. I don't feel comfortable having these words in my mouth. Um, yeah, I'm literally scrolling for something that I felt comfortable to say out loud, and I haven't found it, so I'm gonna wrap up the stream, but, um, yeah. Like, again, it's like, what is your goal and what are the results of your actions? Like, I agree. Can you just say blank instead of the slurs and stuff? Well, I was looking specifically just for the words rather than okay, this one I'll say. Where's the context of okay, can I find that post again? Well, in this one post, well, how can I find it again now? I'm just scrolling randomly. In this one post, she called rape survivors rape lovers. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, say what you will about me, but nobody has made multiple receipt blogs specifically to warn other feminists to not associate with me, as has happened for her. You know? Like, I appreciate women disagreeing with me, and I don't react every single time. Like, I'm also so surprised the way that she's acting on Getter the last few days, like, literally just telling random lies. I don't wanna get into all of it right now, but, like, literally just telling actual lies. Like, she has said that I've said a bunch of stuff in my videos that I've definitely never said because like, she's like, "Yeah, Benji said she did this," and I was like, "But I've never done that, so I definitely wouldn't have said that I did that." Um, and it's like, this is like a Tumblr behavior for, like, teenagers that, like, you will say something that is, like, really, really offensive, and then you'll turn around and be like, "I didn't say that, I said this and this for this reason, and it was, like, very reasonable." And everybody's like, "But we can see the post still." That's the way she's behaving. Yes, Maple, that's why I was like, "Maybe I should make a video about it." Yes, exactly, Maple. And, like, she's spreading these lies about me on Getter, and, like, they're not getting much traction, but it's concerning to me that I think like, I can't control what people say on the internet, and I'm very hesitant of where I'm going to go even psychologically with this because I don't wanna get into, like, well, if I can't control it, I'm upset or something, or, like, I know my goal is not to control what she's saying, um, but, yeah, it's quite disturbing, um, yeah, anyway. Anyway, so I think that she is just, like no, her Tumblr is deleted, but you can look up the hashtag because she's gotten into so many, yeah. If you look up this as a hashtag or if you just search it on Tumblr, there's lots of women talking about her or having screen caps of her and stuff, yeah. Um, but yeah, mad at him. I don't think it even has anything to do with me, actually. I think that she is just like she can't do drama on Tumblr anymore because she was doing drama on Tumblr for like 8 years, so everybody fucking knows who she is and nobody wants anything to do with her. So she is now doing drama on YouTube and Getter, where women don't know her and are like the way she behaves, literally no heterosexual or bisexual woman would ever interact with her in a positive way because of the way she behaves. But because they don't know who she is on Getter and YouTube, then she can start over, right? Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, Toss Stones, it's too bad you showed up towards the end. Um, But yeah, I'm pretty sure Rachel and I will be doing the Sister Space on Saturday at noon Eastern Time, 9 a.m. Pacific Time, 5 p.m. GMT. Okay, I'm gonna let you guys go. Okay, I'll see you tomorrow or the weekend or something. Okay, bye.